March 10th, 1945. 03 hours, 15 minutes. Arlberg Pass, Austrian-German border, altitude 2,300 meters. Captain James Mitchell of the 2nd Special Air Service Brigade pressed frozen binoculars against his face, breath-forming white clouds in air so cold it burned his lungs. Through the green haze of night vision, 3 armored trucks crawled up the mountain road, headlights off, moving at exactly 40 kilometers per hour. 18 SS soldiers, the vehicles. And on the center truck, stenciled in white paint that seemed to glow in the darkness, Uhrenverein, Priorität Sonder A1, Priority Special A1, the highest classification in the Third Reich, higher than orders for Tiger tanks, higher than V-2 rockets, higher than anything Mitchell had seen in 3 years of operations behind enemy lines. He'd received his orders 6 hours earlier, delivered by a colonel who looked like he hadn't slept in days. Stop the convoy. Any cost? Conte. NTS. Components for a device that changes the war. Time until final assembly. 72 hours. 72 hours. Mitchell commanded 16 men. The Germans had 18 protecting something that changes the war. Simple math. Impossible odds. What Captain James Mitchell didn't know, couldn't know, was that inside the center truck traveled 32 explosive lenses of impossible geometric precision, 6 chronometers synchronized to 1/1,000,000th of a second, and a beryllium tamper shell. The final pieces of a puzzle that would give Adolf Hitler the atomic bomb in exactly 3 days. Moving with practiced precision, despite gloves stiff with cold. Behind them, 13 more men lay scattered across the rocks, invisible in white winter camouflage, each positioned according to the plan Mitchell had drawn in snow an hour earlier. 1 road, 1 pass, 1 chance. The ambush point was 300 meters ahead, where the road narrowed between rock face and a drop of 400 meters into darkness. Mitchell had chosen it because there was nowhere to run, no escape, no retreat. For either side. Darkness, sound swallowed by wind howling through the pass. The first truck appeared around the bend, moving slowly, carefully, driver navigating ice-slicked road with visible caution. Second truck, third truck, the one with the white lettering. Mitchell's hand dropped. The night exploded. Truck braked hard, sliding sideways on ice. SS soldiers poured out before it stopped moving, training overcoming surprise, returning fire within seconds. Muzzle flashes lit the mountainside like lightning. But the third truck, Priority Sonder A1, accelerated. Driver gunning the engine, trying to break through, escape the kill zone, reach whatever destination required 72 more hours. Mitchell was already running, boots pounding frozen ground, lungs burning, legs pumping, haze beside. Him, Anderson 10 meters ahead. The truck gained speed, 50 kilometers per hour, 60. Too fast for the icy road, but the driver didn't care. Mission overriding survival instinct. Anderson reached the road, pulled a satchel charge, arm cocking back. The truck was 40 meters away. 30, 20. Anderson threw. The charge hit the road directly in the truck's path. Perfect placement. The driver saw it, swerved left, trying to avoid. But there was no left, only 400 meters of empty AI. The truck's front wheels left the road. Time seemed to stop. Mitchell saw the driver's face through the windshield, eyes wide, mouth open. Saw the truck tilt further, gravity winning. Then it was gone. Falling, tumbling, smashing against rocks, metal shrieking, glass exploding. It hit an outcropping 70 meters down and stopped, wedged against boulders, front end crushed, rear cargo section intact, but tilted at 45 degrees over the void. 30 seconds. When it ended, 11 SS soldiers were dead, 7 captured, smoke rising from burning vehicles, and the smell of cordite mixing with pine and blood. Mitchell had lost 2 men. Carter took a round through the throat in the first 30 seconds, died choking on blood before Hayes could reach him, and Private Douglas Bennett caught a grenade fragment that opened his chest like a flower. 14 survivors, 7 prisoners, and a truck hanging over a cliff. Contents unknown. Clock. Ticking. Mitchell approached the nearest prisoner, an Oberscharführer with blood running from his scalp. "What's in the truck?" The German spat. "Gehen Sie zur Hölle." "Go to hell." Hayes stepped forward, pressed his pistol against the man's knee. He asked what's in the truck. The Oberscharführer's eyes flickered to the cliff edge, back to Hayes, and something changed in his expression. Not fear. Something else. Something that made Mitchell's stomach clench. "You're too late," the German whisper. "Yeah, by 72 hours you are too late." Hayes hit him with the pistol butt. The man slumped, unconscious. Mitchell turned to Anderson. "Get ropes. We're going down." On stone slick as glass. The truck grew larger as he descended. Larger and more wrong. The rear cargo section was intact, but through the shattered windshield, Mitchell could see the driver, neck broken, head twisted at an angle that no living thing should achieve. The front passenger, an officer by the silver piping on his collar, had gone through the windshield, body hanging half out, frozen in the moment of death. Mitchell's boots touched the outcropping. The truck shifted, metal groaning. He froze. The vehicle was balanced on rubble and ice, front end crushed against the rock face, rear end suspended over nothing. One wrong move and 4 tons of steel and cargo would complete their journey into darkness. Anderson landed beside him, breathing hard. "Christ, it's going to fall." Mitchell nodded. "Then we work fast." He said. The handles barely moved. "Hardened steel," he muttered. "Need more leverage." He braced the cutters against the truck body, put his full weight behind it. The lock sheared with a crack like a rifle shot. The truck shifted 6 inches. Both men grabbed for handholds, hearts hammering. The vehicle settled. Held. Barely. Second lock. Third lock. The doors swung open. Inside, secured with canvas straps and packed in straw, were 12 wooden crates, each stenciled with the same designation, U. Ranverein, Inhalt kritisch, nicht öffnen ohne Genehmigung. Critical contents, do not open without authorization. Mitchell pulled his knife, cut the straps on the nearest crate, pried open the lid. Inside, nestled in more straw, wrapped in oilcloth, a metal object, curved, precise, unlike anything he'd seen in 3 years of war. He lifted it carefully, heavy, 5, maybe 6 kilograms. The surface was machined to tolerances he didn't know were possible, edges sharp enough to catch fingerprints. And along one side, engraved in tiny script, Lindsay 1A, Fertigung 3.345. Lens 1A, manufactured 3rd of March, 7 days ago. Anderson was opening another crate. His hand stopped. "Sir, you need to see this." Tonator. Military-grade, German manufacture, capable of triggering explosives with timing so exact that Mitchell's mind tried to grasp it and failed. What needed 6 explosions synchronized to millionths of a second? Third crate. More of the curved metal objects. 32 total. Mitchell counted them twice. Each slightly different in shape, each numbered, each fitting together like pieces of a 3-dimensional puzzle he couldn't solve. Fourth crate. Technical drawings, blueprints, diagrams. Covered in mathematics that might as well have been ancient Greek. But some images needed no translation. A sphere. Explosive lenses arranged around it in perfect symmetry. Arrows indicating compression, implosion. And at the center, labeled in neat German script, Pew Core, 6.2 kilos. Fifth crate. Documents. Mitchell pulled them out, unfolded the first page. His German was functional, learned in classrooms and refined in interrogations, enough to read reports and orders. This was typed on official letterhead. Reichsforschungsrat, Abteilung Uranverein. Reich Research Council, Uranium Club Division. The first line. Zeitplan für Endmontage und Test, 10.12. März 1944. Timeline for final assembly and test, 10th through 12th of March, 1945. Today, Mitchell's hands started shaking. Reference classified. March 10th, 1400 hours. Installation of explosive lens array, estimated duration 6 hours. March 10th, 2000 hours. Installation of tamper shell and reflector, estimated duration 4 hours. March 11th, 0800 hours. Installation of plutonium core, estimated duration 2 hours. March 11th, 1200 hours. Final systems check, sealing of device. March 11th, 1800 hours. Transport to test site. Grid reference CL. Assified distance 47 kilometers. March 12th, 0600 hours. Detonation. Expected yield 18 kilotons plus or minus 3 kilotons. 18 kilotons. Mitchell had heard the term. Los Alamos, Manhattan Project. The American program to build an atomic bomb, so secret that even most generals didn't know details. 18 kilotons meant 18,000 tons of TNT equivalent, meant a weapon that could erase a city, flatten everything within a radius of, he didn't know. I didn't want to know. And this timeline said the Germans would test one in 71 hours and 45 minutes. Mitchell said. All of it. Now. They worked in silence, passing crates up the rope line. Hayes and the others hauled them to the road, loaded them into the captured German trucks. The final crate was the heaviest. Mitchell and Anderson both gripped it, lifted together. The truck shifted, groaned, began to slide. They lunged backward, feet scrambling for purchase, the crate between them, the truck accelerating past, metal screaming against rock, and then it was gone, falling, spinning, hitting the slope 300 meters down with an impact that echoed across the mountains like thunder. Silence. Mitchell and Anderson lay on the outcropping, hearts pounding, the crate between them. Inside, something rattled. Something important enough to be packed separately, important enough to be in the heaviest crate. Mitchell opened it. Inside, wrapped in lead foil, a metal sphere, slightly warm to the touch. 6.2 kilograms, if the documents were accurate. Plutonium. The core of an atomic bomb, sitting in a crate on a mountainside in Austria. And somewhere, according to the timeline now crumpled in Mitchell's pocket, people were waiting for it. People who had 71 hours and 36 minutes to realize it wasn't coming. To realize their timeline was broken. To realize the war they thought they were about to win had just changed. Ooling a dead officer. Shaw set it up on the road, extended the antenna, and Hayes began cranking the generator, electricity building with each rotation until tubes glowed orange in the darkness. Command, this is Falcon 7, over. Static. Command, this is Falcon 7, emergency traffic, over. More static. Then a voice, distant, crackling. Falcon 7, this is command, authentication required. Hayes rattled off code words, dated passwords, verification sequences. 30 seconds of pro-CD. Or while Mitchell stood holding documents that said Hitler would have an atomic bomb in 71 hours. Finally, Falcon 7, you're authenticated. Send traffic. Hayes looked at Mitchell. Mitchell took the handset. Command, we've intercepted convoy priority Sonder A1. Cargo recovered includes technical components, detailed assembly timeline, and weapons-grade nuclear material. Repeat, weapons-grade nuclear material. Silence. Long enough that Mitchell thought they'd lost connection. N. Falcon 7, confirm your last. Did you say nuclear material? Confirmed. Documents indicate German atomic weapons program. Timeline shows test scheduled for March 12th, 0600 hours, 71 hours from now. Another pause. Falcon 7, hold position. Air transport inbound your location, ETA 90 minutes. Secure all materials, nobody touches anything. Do you understand? Nobody touches anything. Lished a perimeter, treated the wounded, guarded the prisoners. The German Oberscharführer regained consciousness, saw the crates lined up on the road, and started laughing. Blood-flecked, bitter laughter that echoed off the mountains. You think you've won, he said in accented English. You think stopping one truck changes anything? Mitchell crouched beside him. What does that mean? The German's eyes were bright with fever or fanaticism or both. We've been working for 3 years. 3 ours. Do you understand what we've built? What we've achieved? The Americans play with theories. We have functioning reactors. We have enriched uranium. We have plutonium production. We have everything. He spat blood. One truck won't stop it. The schedule continues. The Fuhrer will have his weapon. And when he does, your cities will burn. London, New York, Moscow, all of them. burned to ash in an instant. Hayes pressed his pistol against the man's forehead. Where? Where is the assembly site? The German smiled. Close enough that you're already too late. Nung sideways, stopping with wingtips 3 meters from rock faces on both sides. The side door opened. A man jumped out. Not military uniform, but civilian clothes under a heavy coat. 40-something, thin, with round glasses and hands that shook as he approached the crates. I'm Dr. Robert Kaufman, he said. Manhattan Project. Show me everything. Mitchell handed him the documents. Kaufman read the first page, went pale, read the second page, sat down hard on a crate, read the third page, and Essie started crying. Actual tears running down his face, dripping onto German technical diagrams. My God, he whispered. My God, they did it. They actually did it. He looked up at Mitchell. Do you understand what you've captured? Do you have any idea? Mitchell shook his head. Kaufman stood, grabbed Mitchell's shoulders. This is a complete design for an implosion-type nuclear device. Not theoretical. Complete. With manufacturing specifications, with tolerances, with assembly procedures. He let out the blueprint showing the spherical core. This is identical to what we're developing at Los Alamos. Identical, which means either there's a spy in our program, or they developed it independently, and I don't know which is more terrifying. Down carefully, as if it might explode just from handling. Moved to the crate with the curved metal pieces, ran his fingers over the machine's surface. Explosive lenses, 32 of them. You need perfect symmetry for implosion compression. Perfect. These are... He trailed off, pulled out a measuring tape, checked dimensions. These are machined to tolerances of 0.05 millimeters. 0.05. That's... He looked at Mitchell. That's impossible. That's beyond anything I've seen. And beyond anything American industry can do. How did they... He stopped. Opened another crate. Found the technical drawings. Started reading. His hands stopped shaking. His face went from pale to gray. Oh no, oh no, no, no. Mitchell moved closer. What? Kaufman pointed at a diagram showing a cross-section of the device. The yield calculation. They're estimating 18 kilotons. That's based on a plutonium core of 6.2 kilograms and a compression ratio of... He did math in his add 2.7 to 1, which means their explosive lenses work. Which means their timing is precise enough. Which means this isn't theoretical. He looked at Mitchell. This is a working design, ready for assembly, and according to this timeline, he pulled out his own watch, compared it to the German documents. They plan to start installation at 1400 hours today, 8 hours from now, and test it in 70 hours. And shouted orders to the crew, and they began loading crates, each one handled like it contained nitroglycerin and prayers. The plutonium core required special handling. Kaufman wrapped it in lead blankets, placed it in a steel container, secured it with foam padding. This will kill us all if we're not careful, he muttered. Alpha radiation, gamma radiation, and if we drop it wrong, potential for criticality. Mitchell didn't know what criticality meant, but the way Kaufman said it suggested something worse than just an explosion. While they loaded, Mitchell interrogated the Oberscharführer again, this time with Kaufman present, asking technical questions, comparing answers to captured documents. The German had stopped laughing, stopped boasting, watched the crates being loaded with something that might have been satisfaction or might have been despair. You have the components, he finally said, but you don't have the factory. You don't have the enrichment facility. You don't have the reactor producing plutonium. He met Kaufman's eyes. We built all of it, underground, protected. Your bombers can't touch it. Your intelligence never found it. And it's still running, still producing. This timeline you captured, it's for Device 1, but Device 2 is already 40% assembled. Device 3 is in fabrication. By summer, we'll have 6. By autumn, 12. And all your airfields, all your ports, all your cities will be targets. Kaufman crouched to eye level. Where? Where is the facility? The German smiled. I told you. Close enough that you're already too late. Ally spoke. I need you to understand something, Captain. What you captured tonight is evidence of a scientific and industrial achievement that shouldn't exist. We've been working on the Manhattan Project for 3 years. Unlimited budget, best minds in physics, backing of the American government, and we're still months away from a working device. Maybe longer. The Germans have been bombed to rubble. Their cities are destroyed. Their factories are rubble. They're losing the war on every front. They're starving. And somehow, they built this. He held up a blueprint. This isn't rushed. This isn't desperate improvisation. This is careful, methodical, successful scientific research, which means they started years ago. Which means while Hitler was invading Poland, France, Russia, part of his brain was thinking atomic bombs. Which means he stopped, started again. In 1938, Otto Hahn split the atom in Berlin. First successful fission experiment. That's 7 years ago. What if they started then? What if they've been working on this since before the war even started? While we were debating whether nuclear weapons were even possible, they were already building enrichment cascades. Errors. Men in civilian suits with American accents. A scientist Mitchell vaguely recognized from newsreels. British. Famous for something related to radar or computing or something. Everyone talking at once. Everyone demanding to see the cargo. Everyone radiating that special combination of urgency and terror that comes from realizing the world is different than you thought, and worse. The crates were unloaded into trucks with armed escort. The documents were handed to intelligence analysts who began reading and went silent. The plutonium core was transferred to a lead-lined container that required 6 men to lift, loaded into an armored car, and driven away toward a destination nobody would name. Mitchell and his surviving men were separated, taken to individual rooms, and debriefed for 6 hours straight. Same questions, different faces, over and over. What did you see? What did the Germans say? How many guards? What condition were the components in? Did anyone touch the plutonium? Are you sure nobody touched the plutonium? By the time they released him, it was 1,500 hours. He'd been awake for 36 hours. Had killed men 12 hours ago. Had held the core of an atomic bomb in his hands 10 hours ago. Should have been exhausted. Should have been traumatized. Should have felt something. Instead, he just felt cold. Introduced himself as William Stevens, Office of Strategic Services. Stevens didn't waste time. The components you captured have been analyzed. Dr. Kaufman's preliminary assessment is confirmed. This is a complete functional design for an implosion-type nuclear weapon. The materials are sufficient for assembly. The timeline is realistic. If the Germans had received these components on schedule, they would have been able to conduct a test in 70 hours. He paused. Now for the bad news. The Oberscharführer you captured was right. This was Device 1. Intelligence estimates indicate the Germans have at least 2 more devices in various stages of completion. We don't know where the assembly facility is. We don't know where the enrichment takes place. We don't know how much nuclear material they have stockpiled. What we do know is this. The German nuclear program is not only real, but significantly more advanced than we believed possible. The British general cleared his throat. Tane Mitchell, your mission last night prevented an atomic test by the Third Reich. Possibly prevented deployment of a nuclear weapon against Allied forces. You and your men will be decorated, but those decorations will remain classified for the foreseeable future. Officially, Operation Prohibition never happened. Officially, you spent last night on reconnaissance patrol that encountered no enemy contact. Do you understand? Mitchell nodded. Understood that he'd saved the world and couldn't tell anyone. Understood that somewhere in the ruins of Germany, scientists were still working, still building, still racing toward a finish line that might yet come before the war ended. Harz Mountains, deep enough to survive bombing, close enough to Nordhausen to use slave labor from concentration camps, but far from supplies. Second mark. 2. Facilities in the Black Forest. Multiple underground complexes already confirmed, but heavily targeted by Allied air forces. Third mark. 3. Somewhere in the Bavarian Alps. Remote, defensible, access to hydroelectric power for enrichment centrifuges, and close to the Austrian border, which would explain why they were transporting more. Through Arlberg Pass. He looked at Mitchell. We need to find it. Before they complete Device 2. Before they move beyond the testing phase. Stevens nodded. We're organizing reconnaissance flights. Ultra-intercepts are being analyzed for any reference to urine-verine activities. Resistance networks in Germany and Austria have been alerted. But it's like searching for a needle in a haystack, and the needle is surrounded by what's left of the Wehrmacht. Mitchell spoke for the first time since entering the room. The Oberscharführer said it was close enough that we're already too late. What did he mean? Kaufman and Stevens exchanged glances. Stevens answered. We think he meant close to completion. Device 2 might be days away. Maybe hours. We're running blind, Captain. Racing against a clock we can't see. You're too careful for that. But a logistics order. Transport of Type D equipment from Garmisch-Partenkirchen to Location Echo, priority immediate, requires mountain-capable vehicles and engineer escort. Departure 2000 hours March 11th. Arrival estimate March 12th, 0400. Location Echo, Type D equipment. Orders coming from Oberkommando der Wehrmacht, highest level, routed through Munich. Kaufmann plotted it on the map. Garmisch-Partenkirchen is here, in the Bavarian Alps. If they're sending equipment to Location Echo at 2000 hours March 11th and expecting arrival at 0400 March 12th, he did the math. 8-hour transit time, mountain-capable vehicles. Location Echo has to be within a radius of 80 kilometers. And the timing is interesting. March 12th, 0600. That's when the original timeline called for the test. If Location Echo is the test site, they're still on schedule despite losing your captured Truk. Okay. Mitchell looked at the map, saw mountains, valleys, dozens of possible locations. How do we narrow it down? Kaufman marked potential sites. Needs to be remote. Needs to be a valley or basin for blast containment. Needs road access for equipment transport. That eliminates most options. He circled 3 areas. Here, here, or here. One of these is Location Echo. One of these is where they're going to detonate Device 2 in 43 hours. Stevens picked up a phone. I'll order recon. ASINS flights. Low altitude, visual search. If there's an underground facility, there'll be surface evidence. Ventilation shafts, radio antennas, vehicle tracks. We'll find it. Mitchell thought of the Oberscharführer's smile, the certainty in his voice. Close enough that you're already too late. And if we find it, Mitchell asked, then what? 12 hours notice. Objective: locate and neutralize German nuclear test site before Device 2 could be detonated. Assets: 3 reconnaissance aircraft, 2 squadrons of fighter bombers, 1 company of American paratroopers, and Mitchell's SAS team. Now down to 14 men, but considered experts on German nuclear facilities due to their one previous encounter. The reconnaissance flights launched at dawn, March 11th, flew grid patterns over the 3 circled areas, photographed everything. The first 2 areas showed nothing. Alpine valleys, snow-covered, pristine, empty. But the third area, a valley 63 kilometers south-southeast of Garmisch-Partenkirchen, showed something odd. Thermal imaging detected heat signatures from a location that appeared to be solid mountainside. Radio direction finding picked up encrypted transmissions on frequencies known to be used by German scientific research. And visual photography, enhanced and analyzed, showed what looked like camouflage. Netting over a section of cliff face and vehicle tracks leading to a rock wall that shouldn't have a road. Location Echo. Found. 41 hours before the scheduled test. Shell's team would go in through the damaged entrance, secure or destroy any nuclear devices, extract any intelligence possible. Simple, suicidal, probably, but necessary. Because if Device 2 detonated successfully, if Hitler saw the mushroom cloud and understood what he possessed, the war would enter a phase that nobody wanted to contemplate. Desperate men with atomic weapons, cities as hostages, the Eastern Front collapsing, the Western Front days away from crossing the Rhine, and somewhere, in a bunker in Berlin, a madman with his finger on a trigger, that could end the world. March 11th, 1800 hours. Mitchell and his 13 men boarded a C-47 transport, checked equipment, loaded magazines, sharpened knives. Nobody spoke much. What was there to say? They'd already done the impossible once, stopped a convoy, captured a bomb corps, changed the war. Now they were being asked to do it again. Harder this time, against an enemy that knew they were coming in a foe. Artified position with hours before a test that might still happen even if they succeeded in getting inside. Stakels could see the paratrooper drop, white canopies blossoming like flowers, drifting down into defensive positions around the valley perimeter, and could see, deeper in the valley, what looked like a concrete bunker or observation post, positioned on a rise with clear sightlines to the valley floor. Test observation point, which meant the test site itself was here. Somewhere below the snow and rock, Device 2 waited. The C-47 circled lower, jumped altitude from 2,000 meters to 500. Back ramp dropped. Wind screamed into the cargo bay. Mitchell hooked his static line, checked Hayes's equipment, felt Hayes check his. 13 men in a line, 14 jumps, 14 chances to break a leg, catch a bullet, miss the landing zone, and spend the next 40 hours wandering mountains while the world ended. Green light. Go. Mitchell jumped. Time to wonder if the intelligence is accurate, if location echo is really the test site, if Device 2 actually exists, or if this is all an elaborate waste of resources based on captured documents that might be disinformation. Time to wonder if the Germans below are just engineers and scientists, or if they're SS fanatics who'll fight to the death, or if they've already evacuated through some escape tunnel that reconnaissance missed. Time to wonder if it matters. Parachute deployed. Harness jur. Head hard. Descent slowed. Mitchell steered toward the landing zone, a clearing 300 meters from the tunnel entrance, chosen because it was flat and clear and only moderately suicidal. Touchdown running. Shed the chute. Sten gun up, scanning for targets. Hayes landed 20 meters away, Anderson beyond him. One by one the team assembled, silent choreography perfected through repetition and necessity. 14 men, everyone accounted for. The tunnel entrance was 200 meters across. OS open ground, cratered by bombs, but not collapsed. Smoke rising, Germans shouting, sounds of equipment being moved. Mitchell signaled advance. They moved in pairs, covering each other, using rubble for concealment. Reached the tunnel mouth without contact. Inside, electric lights flickered, shadows moved, voices echoed, and deeper in, the sound of machinery, heavy machinery, running. H signs, Reactor A, Reactor B, and Reicherung, enrichment, Werkstatt, workshop, montage, assembly. Mitchell chose montage. If Device 2 existed, it would be there. The corridor sloped down, temperature dropped. Their breath became visible. Footsteps echoed on concrete. Ahead, a door, steel, secured with a wheel lock like a ship's hatch. Hayes tried it, locked. Anderson pulled cutting charges, placed them around the lock mechanism, signaled everyone back. The explosion in the enclosed. Space was deafening. The door sagged open. Inside, a room carved from solid rock, 50 meters across, 30 meters high, and in the center, under banks of floodlights, sitting on a steel cradle, Device 2. It wasn't what Mitchell expected. Movies and propaganda had prepared him for something sleek, futuristic, threatening. This looked industrial, ugly. A metal sphere approximately 1.5 meters in diameter, covered in cables, surrounded by scaffolding, with technicians, 3 of the wearing lab coats, standing frozen in the act of connecting something to something else. Behind them, monitoring stations, diagnostic equipment, and on the wall, a clock showing 2300 hours March 11th, 7 hours until the scheduled test. Mitchell approached the device. Up close, it was more impressive. The metal sphere was covered in pentagonal and hexagonal panels, each one precisely machined, each one fitting perfectly against its neighbors. Between the panels, thin gaps where cables ran, and at various points, small windows showing complex mechanisms inside. The top hemisphere was secured with dozens of bolts, unopened, incomplete. "It's not armed." Kaufman's voice came through the radio clip to Mitchell's vest. He was side with the paratroopers, coordinating the assault. "If the core isn't installed yet, the device isn't dangerous. But don't touch anything. Those lenses are packed with conventional explosives, kilograms of it, enough to bring down the whole chamber." Mitchell keyed his radio. "We have device 2. Appears incomplete. 3 technicians captured. What are your orders?" Silence. Then Kaufman, "Can you extract it?" Mitchell looked at the device. 1,500 kilograms, minimum. Sitting on a CI. Radel bolted to the floor, surrounded by equipment, in a chamber 200 meters underground. "Negative. Too heavy. Too deep." "Then destroy it. Charges on the lenses. That'll ruin the implosion geometry. Without perfect symmetry, it's just expensive scrap." Mitchell nodded to Anderson. Anderson began placing charges. 0.8 kilograms according to the label. Not quite enough for a full yield explosion, but close. Enough for a test. Enough to prove the concept. Enough to show Hitler that his scientists had succeeded, that atomic weapons were real, that the war could still be won. Mitchell wrapped it in lead blankets, placed it in a containment vessel Anderson had carried in his pack for exactly this purpose. 5 kilograms of plutonium, small enough to fit in a backpack, powerful enough to destroy a CI. The weight of it was psychologically crushing. They found more in the enrichment chambers, not plutonium but uranium, refined to 73%, U-235, stored in cylinders, each labeled with weight and purity and date of production. Dates going back to 1943. 2 years of continuous operation, producing weapons-grade uranium, while Allied intelligence insisted German nuclear research was purely theoretical. Tons of it. Literal tons. Enough for a dozen bombs. 20 bombs. Mitchell radioed Kaufman with inventory. Heard the scientist's voice crack. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. We need to secure all of it. Every gram. If even a fraction gets out, if they scatter it, hide it, we'll be finding Nazi atomic caches for decades, which was when the shooting started. Flashes and ricochets and screaming. Mitchell's team fell back to the assembly chamber, using the doorway as a choke point. Hayes took a round through the shoulder, kept firing left-handed. Private Thomas Grant caught a grenade fragment in the face, went down thrashing, blood everywhere. Anderson triggered the charges on device 2. The explosion was contained, directed inward, but the sound was apocalyptic. 32 explosive lenses detonating simultaneously in a space designed to amplify pressing. Sure, the metal sphere ruptured, fragments sprayed the chamber. The scaffolding collapsed, monitoring equipment exploded, and in the sudden silence afterward, Mitchell could hear something else. Deeper, a grinding rumbling sound. The chamber was collapsing. Charges had destabilized the rock. Ceiling cracking, dust falling, then chunks, then slabs. Out! Mitchell grabbed Hayes. Anderson grabbed Grant, and they ran. Behind them, Device 2 disappeared under tons of falling stone. The technicians, and hands still raised, disappeared under the same. The corridor ahead was chaos. Paratroopers and SS soldiers fighting room to room, shadows and muzzle flashes, the smell of cordite and blood. Mitchell's team pushed through, firing, reloading, firing again. Made it to the main tunnel. Made it outside. Collapsed in snow that was falling now, thick flakes obscuring the valley, obscuring the bodies, obscuring everything. The paratroopers, 23 wounded. German casualties, estimated 60 plus, impossible to count because the facility was collapsing, burying everything. Captured, 12 technicians, 7 guards, and 1 individual who identified himself as Oberingenieur Klaus Zimmermann, chief engineer of the Uran-Verein project. Zimmermann was 47 years old, gray-haired, wearing a lab coat over civilian clothes, and spoke perfect English learned during a decade at Cambridge before the war. In the UXE field hospital, while medics worked on Hayes' shoulder, Mitchell sat across from Zimmermann and asked the only question that mattered. "How close were you?" Zimmermann looked at his hands, looked at the ceiling, looked at Mitchell. 7 hours. Device 2 was 7 hours from completion. We needed to install the core, seal the device, transport it to the test bunker, and conduct final diagnostics. 7 hours. If your fighter bombers had come 7 hours later, if you'd delayed the assault eve, and slightly, we would have been ready, and the test would have proceeded. He smiled without humor. You ask how close. I tell you, close enough to see the finish line, close enough to know we could have won. Achieving criticality in September 1943. Described the enrichment process. Gaseous diffusion through ceramic membranes, 63,000 stages in cascade, producing 0.7 kilograms of weapons-grade uranium per week. Described the weapons design, developed independently by Kurt Diebner, refined by Carl Friedrich von Weizsäcker, proved mathematically viable in August 1944. Described the politics. Himmler had backed the project over Heisenberg's objection. Recognizing that physics didn't care about ideology and that atomic weapons would make Germany invincible. Described the timeline. Device 1 had been the prototype, designed for testing. Device 2 was the test article, designed to validate the physics. Device 3 was being built for deployment, targeted for Berlin if the Soviets weren't stopped, targeted for Moscow if they were. He showed them documents hidden in his coat, blueprints for submarine-launched versions, calculations for bomb or delivery, estimates of casualty rates based on yield and altitude and city density. New York, 300,000 dead. London, 400,000. Moscow, 600,000. And all of it theoretical until 7 hours from now, when Device 2 would have created a crater in the Bavarian Alps and proved every calculation correct. Hence, from offices, photographed equipment, interviewed technicians, and slowly, piece by piece, reconstructed the full scope of what had almost happened. The Uranverein had begun in 1939, immediately after Hahn's fission discovery. Early work was theoretical, scattered among universities, uncoordinated. But in 1942, after Heydrich's assassination demonstrated that conventional weapons couldn't protect leadership from determined attackers, Hitler himself ordered unification under Himmler's control. Budget became unlimited. Labor came from concentration camps. Materials came from occupied territories. Uranium from Czechoslovakia, heavy water from Norway, rare earth elements from France. By 1943, 3 reactors were operational, producing plutonium. By 1944, enrichment cascades were producing weapons-grade uranium. By 1945, actual devices were being assembled, and through all of it, security was absolute. Workers were segregated, knowing only their specific tasks. Communications were hand-delivered, never transmitted by radio. The facilities were underground, invisible to aerial reconnaissance. Allied intelligence knew something was happening but couldn't find it, couldn't quantify it, couldn't stop it, until a convoy with priority Sonder A1 markings happened to travel through Arlberg Pass at 0300 hours on March 10th, and 16 men decided to ambush it. Top secret and distributed to exactly 14 people, including Churchill and Roosevelt, ran to 372 pages. The summary was 3 paragraphs. German nuclear weapons program was significantly more advanced than Allied intelligence estimated. Multiple devices in various stages of completion. Device 2 was 7 hours from completion when facility was neutralized. Components and materials secured total approximately 12 kilograms of plutonium, 170 TiO, kilograms of weapons-grade uranium, and complete documentation of reactor and weapons design. Estimate: if Operation Greenhouse had been delayed by 24 hours, Germany would have successfully tested an atomic weapon on March 12, 1945. If delayed by 72 hours, Germany might have deployed a weapon against Allied forces. Recommend: immediate intensification of Manhattan Project. Recommend: complete destruction of all remaining German nuclear facilities. Recommend: mend posthumous decorations for 3 KIA from Operation Prohibition. Classified status to be maintained indefinitely. Churchill read it. Put it down. Lit a cigar with hands that shook slightly. 72 hours, he said to the empty room. We were 72 hours from losing the war. Ived it posthumously. No cameras, no press. No records beyond a classified file that wouldn't be opened for 50 years. Mitchell stood at attention while a general whose name he wasn't allowed to know pinned the medal to his uniform and said words about valor and sacrifice and service. Didn't feel like valor. Felt like luck. Wrong place, right time. Saw something suspicious, investigated, found something impossible, stopped something terrible. Could have gone differently at a dozen points. If the convoy had traveled a different route, if the ambush had failed, if the truck had fallen into the ravine completely instead of catching on rocks, if reconnaissance had missed location echo, if Device 2 had been 7 hours further in assembly, any of those, and the world would be different. Mitchell thought about that sometimes, in the decades afterward. The narrow margin between victory and apocalypse. 72 hours, 3 days. The amount of time it takes to drive from London to Edinburgh, or read a long book, or recover from a bad cold. The amount of time that separated civilization from atomic fire. Key, after Japan surrendered and the war ended, and the world saw what atomic weapons actually did to cities and people, Zimmerman gave one interview. Classified. Transcript locked away. But one paragraph was eventually released. People ask if I feel guilt. Of course I feel guilt, but I also feel relief. If Device 2 had worked, if we had tested successfully, Hitler would have ordered immediate deployment. Would have targeted London first, or perhaps Moscow. Would have killed hundreds of thousands. NDS in an instant. And the Allies would have responded with their own weapons. And Germany would have responded again. And it would have continued until Europe was a radioactive wasteland. We were building instruments of apocalypse and we knew it, and we couldn't stop. So yes, I feel relief that Captain Mitchell stopped us. Relief that we failed. Relief that the world survived our success. Researchers, historians, physicists, environmental scientists excavated the valley, found the collapsed tunnel, found remnants of the facility, found, buried under 40 meters of rock and ice, fragments of Device 2. The metal sphere, ruptured by Anderson's charges, split into pieces but still recognizable. The explosive lenses, deformed but intact enough to study. The scaffolding, crushed but documenting the assembly process. And in a shielded chamber that had somehow survived the collapse. Cylinders of uranium, still radioactive, still dangerous, still testament to how close the calculations had come to reality. The site is now a memorial. Small, unmarked except for a plaque that says, "Here, in March 1945, the world changed." Doesn't explain how. Doesn't mention Device 2 or Operation Greenhouse or Captain James Mitchell. Just, the world changed. Which is true, because in a facility that no longer exists, scientists who are mostly dead now built a weapon that was, never used. And in stopping them, in capturing their materials, in learning their secrets, the Allies proved something important, that nuclear weapons were not theoretical curiosities but practical, buildable, deployable tools of war, that the Manhattan Project wasn't wasting resources on impossible physics, that the race to build an atomic bomb was real and urgent and winnable. 72 hours after Mitchell's convoy ambush, if history had gone differently, Hitler would have had his mushroom bomb cloud, would have had his demonstration, would have had his trump card. 3 months later, America had theirs, and the world entered an age where 72 hours could mean the difference between civilization and ash. End by a reconnaissance pilot showing a valley in the Bavarian Alps, a column of smoke rising from where a tunnel entrance used to be, and if you looked carefully, tiny figures in the snow that might have been soldiers or might have been shadows. On the back, in Mitchell's handwriting, March 11, 1945, location, Echo, 72 hours. Someone asked him once what it meant. He smiled, that particular smile of someone who knows something terrible and true that others don't. It means we were lucky, he said. Extraordinarily, impossibly lucky. And luck isn't a strategy, isn't something you can rely on. But sometimes, just once in a civilization, luck is enough. He put the photograph away. Never looked at it again. Never needed to. because he remembered the weight of the plutonium core in his hands, the sound of Device 2 exploding, the knowledge that somewhere in a bunker in Berlin, a madman was waiting for news that never came. Remembered that, in a war of millions Yeed and cities bombed to rubble and humanity at its worst, sometimes one convoy on one mountain pass stopped at 0300 hours by 16 cold and frightened men is what stands between continuation and ending. 72 hours, 3 days, one convoy, one decision, and the world survived.